And also, as I kind of post-visualize those pictures I made, we've all seen those pictures of people, especially hunters. They go hunting and they have the deer, and they have the picture made with their deer and so forth that they've killed, or a trophy that they've won at the bowling alley or something like that. These are almost like those kinds of photographs of people with these trophies in front of them. As horrible as that may sound about a tragic event like this, it kind of became somewhat visually bizarre in that respect.
Yeah, I had one of the people that I photographed that said she nearly cried whenever they took her piece of tile away because she had grown so attached to it. But she also said it made her feel more patriotic. So the pieces of debris had some type of, people had an emotional tie to them. And your photograph definitely showed that.
I'm sorry, this is Bob Doherty. I recall us sitting in the bureau, and as you know, pictures pop in, or may not know, pictures just pop into our computer from member newspapers. And we had seen nothing of wreckage at all, and there had been nothing on television. And at that point in time, all of a sudden, a picture pops in. I believe it was a parking lot.
Mm-hmm. That was the bank shot.
Nacogdoches. That was the first piece of wreckage that we saw in an image, which in a photograph, which popped into us from the member newspaper.
Well, I guess if you have nothing more to add, I'll ask if there's anybody here that have any questions.
Yes, Kate Archer, Red River Radio.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Tammy. One question for any of you can field this. NASA had pretty much a pretty solid debris documentation and footprint, if you will, by the time it started to really roll into the investigation stage. How did you all deal with NASA with the images you had made?
Well, my understanding was a lot of people did contribute images down there. A lot of what NASA played with were also some of the videos that were shot, both from California and across New Mexico and southern Utah. There was some video shot there, and it showed a lot of basically the episodes of debris breaking off that kind of helped them. I mean, before the specifics of how the wing fell apart. And then the whole shuttle basically disrupted. There was quite a bit of video evidence, and there were some still pictures. I know that one guy reported in California that NASA bought his camera and lens because they were trying to duplicate some of the stuff they saw in the picture. At least that's the story that has circulated on some of the boards from that fellow. I know that by the time I had gotten in touch down at the Johnson Space Center, they didn't need anything in particular. I mean, they had seen my pictures. They were online. They didn't need me to come and bring them anything in person. And by that point, I think they very pretty quickly, I think, pieced together, what had happened. I think they were trying to rule out, a collision with something in orbit or debris in the upper atmosphere. Those kinds of questions were pretty quickly ruled out. And then it really came down to the issues of testing the whole theory that the foam had punched the hole in the wing, and a lot of the final evidence really came from the engineering experiments done here on the ground.
Interestingly enough, the Tyler member transmitted to us full frame, as I recall, all 8 images, no cropping.
Right.
And we at DAP ran them full frame, and we immediately went back and dissected. I don't want to use the word dissected.
Enlarged.
we cropped severely, and that's where we got the image of all the breakup. Basically, showed different pieces.
I went back and counted it. In one of my frames, there are at least 45 to 50 discrete, contrails and particles coming down. The other thing that's kind of from an engineering perspective interesting is that if you see the contrail, the actual burning contrail, there is a spiral in the trail. And it really fits with what happened when the left wing came off. The shuttle basically went into a very high rotation spin spiraling and basically shredding itself apart. I mean, this was not as much an explosion as it was just a complete ripping apart of the breakup of the spacecraft, from just ripping itself apart. And you can see that really in the contrail of the picture. I mean, everyone looks at the fireball bright end of the picture, but if you look at the contrail portion of the picture, there is a spiral kind of barbershop pole effect that you can see in the smoke that really kind of fits the pattern of the thing just spinning as it fell back to Earth.
Did that answer it for you, Kate?
Yeah, and so now with this exhibit, what do you want people to get out of this exhibit 4 years later?
Well, just to remember that it did happen here, and it's a tragedy. But we are over the line where the space shuttle does travel, and it may be by design, that it's not a densely populated area.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to see it fly over it too much anymore. They're really trying very hard now to keep population areas out of the reentry pathway, specifically because of the fact that we dodged an incredible bullet that day.
Yeah, nobody was really hurt on the ground, which was really remarkable.
I mean, all I've heard about is one cow. A lot of physical, houses had holes punched into them, things like that. There was a lot of property damage. Nobody on the ground was hit. I do know about one airplane that actually struck some debris. There was a sort of private jet that had some cracked windshield.
What height was it when it broke up?
If I remember, I think it was about 160,000, 170,000 feet. I mean, it was still just at the edge. I mean, it was just really kind of just partway through the upper atmosphere. I mean, it hadn't made it too far down. It was still doing about Mach 5, Mach 6 when it got to us. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they were still pretty high up and moving pretty fast.
Are there any more questions?
Well, what I was going to say, Tammy, is I think this is an important exhibit from the perspective that this was certainly locally. This was a major event in East Texas. Perhaps the only other place that felt this more was the Space Coast in Florida. A lot of these astronauts, frankly, were neighbors of ours. Most of them lived in the Houston area. Most of them lived just south of where this disaster actually occurred. A lot of them had families through East Texas, and a lot of them had friends throughout East Texas. I mean, several of the doctors I work with knew several of these astronauts personally. So this was not just another accident. This was a local story that involved, to a certain extent, local people, and it had a tremendous impact on a lot of the people here, perhaps more than it did anywhere in the world. Of course, the play of my pictures sort of pointed to the fact that at least on that day, this was a huge story around the world, and everybody kind of felt the importance of what it is NASA does and what their mission is to everybody, not just to the people here in the United States. But locally, this was much more of a personal issue. This was a loss of people that a lot of people knew. This was a loss of a program that's very close to Texans and Floridians and a lot of Americans. And I think I think actually looking back at the images of the response to the people of this event is an important way of telling the story of that time to people who lived through it.
Very well said.
Scott has, by the way, this is Bob. Scott has handled, been back to cover launches and recoveries of the shuttle since the Texas accident.
Yeah, and it's been my privilege to get those images contributed to the AP and tell the story about our return to space as well as our hiatus from it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lieberman, and I'd like to thank all the guests for being on the phone call today, and thank you for listening. Remember, you can find us at tccphotogallery.com on the web or in iTunes. The search string is Tammy Cromer Campbell, and also on YouTube. So thank you again, and y'all have a great day. Bye.